let's try and understand exactly what is going on. The Democratic Alliance already has given the president 48 hours. You've just heard John Steenhuisen saying it is time to remove those ministers that are implicated in the Zondo Commission issues. We know who those ministers are. And then, of course, mentioning, well, I suppose not mentioning her by name, but we all know that it is the Higher Education Minister, Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane, who misled Parliament recently. And so the call is that, why don't you fire those ministers as well? All right, let's talk now to Sandile Swana, political analyst, who joins us this evening. Mr. Swana, good evening to you. Thank you for your time, as is always. How are you reading this move by the president?
Thank you. The state president is dealing with issues in the domain of trade, especially international trade with the United States of America, which has been turned into a racial issue by white South Africans, peppered with lies and ideas of white supremacy, plugging into the philosophies of J.D. Vance of imposing the Western white Christian civilization across the world, which Joel Nechitenze correctly identified as that there is an equality or an identity, if you like, between the Make America Great Again and Make Apartheid Great Again. So the DA sees themselves as a credible and worthy representative of South Africa, more than the established and elected government of South Africa in terms of Ronald Lamola and his staff and all those who work with him in foreign affairs.
If that's how you see it, Andrew Whitfield, on the back of that trip, the understanding is that he wrote to the president apologizing. He never had a response. He writes again. This is according to the leader of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen. He writes again and he doesn't get a response. And instead, this is the surprise move that he gets months down the line. That trip to the United States with Emma Powell, it happened back in March. And if this indeed is the gold standard for the president to deal with those that he would have told not to go to America, well, the expectation then should be that this X is also going to fall on the Freedom Front Plus. Its leadership is in the United States, either as we speak or they possibly are back in the country. Isn't that the manner to deal with things, therefore?
The politics of Ramaphosa, it would be correct, your view would be correct, that if he's actually addressing the subversive idea that the white South Africans feel that the Department of Foreign Affairs is beneath them, it cannot represent South Africa in negotiating trade deals with the USA. Because as I was reading, the reasons why the DA, including Whitfield, went to the USA, it was the facilities were there. I mean, Ramaphosa had provided all the infrastructure for the United States to engage with South Africa formally, as they always have had. The USA has had trade relationship since the 1870s, 1871, with the South Africa, without this type of thing happening. And since 1994, we've never had this type of arrogance in the white population of South Africa. So Ramaphosa has got to clean house if he has decided to do that. And when he does that, he has got to address all the culprits, all of them.
Let's then understand, or at least try to get into what the DA will be discussing. Helen Zille, in her capacity as federal Federal Council chairperson, she's called a meeting, an urgent meeting at that. What do you think that is signaling, particularly for the GNU?
There can be no signaling for the GNU. Helen Zille cannot do nothing to the GNU. Everything they do, they must be approved by big business. Whether they stay or they leave, we've been here before over the budget issue. So both of them have got to be managed by that up until Ramaphosa is confident, for instance, to accept other parties, whether they take the form of an Action SA, BOSA, EFF, and others, to replace the DA. And he can make that decision. Thabo Mbeki ran this country without any of these peripheral parties and all this type of thing, especially right-wing influences in the cabinet. So he needs to make up his mind what he wants to be and be that if he wants to be that, and to deal with subversion. This is subversion. What is dealing with here is subversion. This is not misdemeanors, corruption, or all those things. This is subversion of the state of South Africa. This is subversion. This is an undermining of the sovereignty of South Africa.
So if that, what you are describing now, versus the ministers that are being called out either for being involved in acts of corruption or those that deliberately mislead Parliament, you're saying that comparing what Andrew Whitfield and those that have gone to America has done versus the alleged corrupt ministers, the ones that mislead Parliament, you're saying that you actually cannot compare the two. This is much weightier. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, first of all, it is quite clear what it is. Its identity is clear. This is subversion. Number two, the DA made a deal with Ramaphosa to protect him from Palapa. That is no secret. So when they made a deal with the ANC, they made a deal with the corrupt ANC. That is the DA. The DA is not as innocent as some people would want to make it to be. You'll remember that Herman Mashab made us to understand that when he was mayor of Johannesburg, it was the DA councillors who approached him for corrupt deals under the table. There are others who were beaten up in Tshwane. Msimang was beaten up in the street for corruption, and he was bleeding. So we must not assume that white politics is clean and not corrupt. The whole idea of apartheid is corrupt to the core. White supremacy is corrupt to the core. And what we're dealing with here is white supremacy and its corruption.
Sandile Swana, thank you very much for your time. And he is weighing in on the latest move by President Cyril Ramaphosa, deciding to axe the deputy minister, at least one of the deputy ministers. Remember that Ministry of Trade, Industry and Competition, it's got 2 deputy ministers, and Andrew Whitfield formed part of that. And so he's now been removed. That's where we are. We are probably not done with this conversation. At some point tonight, I'm sure there is going to be lots more opportunities to weigh in.